Hi, welcome to Leaving the Lies and Speaking Your Truth. We are so excited to have you today with this interview. We ask that you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page. We ask that you go over to Facebook and that you like, share, and join our group. Join the discussion, join the talks. Let's let the knowledge of cults that they are real out so that we can help everyone. Melody, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited about this. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Our guest today, I'm super excited for. I've known him for many a years. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. We are just going to talk. You're going to tell us your story, and let's get started. You ready, Mel?
Yes. Okay, Robert, the first thing we want to ask you is pretty simple. Can you tell us when and how you first joined the House of Yahweh?
I was about 12. My mom had stumbled across the teachings and just told me one day we're going to Texas. So that's how that shifted. But the concept, the religion itself, she had discovered a lot of the same things that the house was practicing and preaching. So the traumatic shift happened before the house. One day she just came home and said, "Hey, we have new beliefs now. Say goodbye to birthdays, Christmas, no more going outside on Saturdays and playing with your friends. Your life is about to dramatically shift." So, we had already started practicing a lot of the things that the house was about before we even come to the house. And that was, of course,
Was that shift easy for you, Robert?
No, it wasn't. I already felt different. I talked different. I'm half black, I'm half white, so it was always hard to fit in with both. And then this religion came that made me even more different. So I always felt like an outsider, no matter where I went. When I was, it's funny because when we started practicing this religion, I was coincidentally in Catholic school enrolled.
Wow.
And I forget the day that.
Yeah, that's quite a shift.
It is. And so we couldn't just pull me out mid-semester, so we had to go with it and, stay in Catholic school while practicing these new beliefs.
Now, I would like for you, if it's all right, for you to let everybody know where you lived before you transferred to Texas.
I was in New York. So, at this particular time, it was actually New Jersey. I was born in New York, and we eventually moved to New Jersey. So one of the things that was really traumatic when I was in this Catholic school, maybe, forget what grade, maybe 5th or 6th, Halloween came around and everyone was wearing costumes, and of course I couldn't participate. So my mom sent a letter to school explaining why I couldn't participate. And my teacher, I'll never forget her, she was always she despised me because of these letters my mom would send me to school with. I believe. But she read it out loud in class. Robert Smith cannot participate in Halloween because of his beliefs and the 613 laws of the Bible, and this is a pagan holiday that, So I don't remember the exact wording, but that's the gist of it. So.
She put you right on the spot.
Yeah, and they were already looking at me because I wasn't wearing a costume when everyone else was. So it was constant things like that throughout my childhood where I felt like, I just can't fit in no matter how hard I tried. Which led later in life to me trying too hard to fit in at times,
Right.
So, it did have an impact later in life.
Right. What was your first impressions of the House of Yahweh and its members then?
Well, that's what was funny, because that leads into this. When I first come to the house, I felt like I finally found a place I belong. Finally, everyone else has these same weird beliefs as my family. And I say weird, not in a disrespectful way. It was strange to other people. I had to explain myself constantly. So we get to this place where I felt like they didn't care what color you were. They didn't care. They were happy that you also believed in the same things that were shared amongst everyone. So coming to the house was a relief. I felt like finally I found the place I belong. And everyone made me feel that way. People went out their way to show kindness to us. Coming from New York, where people are defensive and
Yeah.
more likely give you
Harsh.
a middle finger than a wave. It was quite the adjustment. I never forget first time driving in Texas, people were just waving at us for no reason as we passed some vehicles. I was like, what's going on, Mom? Why are they waving at us? I'm used to middle fingers, when people were driving past me, but never know.
One finger wave.
Yeah, so just Texas in general was quite a strange place to me when I first got here. But the House of Yahweh specifically was welcoming, kind. I don't know, I just felt like I belonged.
So, Robert, I have a question that we didn't discuss ahead, but I don't think it's a complicated question. So, you joined when you were 12. When did you officially move to Texas? Because you were an out-of-towner for a while first, right?
Yeah, it was about 15, I think, when we finally moved to Texas.
Okay, so it was a few years. Okay.
Yeah, so a few years of making the trip every 3 times a year from New York to Abilene. And at the time when money was tight, it was via a giant school bus that would come from Maine and go through all the East Coast cities on the way down to Abilene and pick up anyone that couldn't afford to fly down. So we would ride in this white school bus that said House of Yahweh all over it, pick me up. All my friends would be laughing at me. Like, where's he going in that white school bus? And then, we'd throw our stuff in there. But it actually was a really fun experience. I mean, coming from the city, I never did anything adventurous like that, really, and so stopping places and seeing America firsthand was kind of cool to me at the time, and I actually had nothing but good memories of those trips. But it would bring us to the house, and so we had 2 or 3 days of driving before we get to a feast to spend.
And I can relate to that, Robert, because I was from Michigan and we used to caravan with the Wisconsin group and did the same thing that you did with Maine. We would meet them, down in Chicago area, and then we would travel as a caravan the rest of the way down. And I have very fond memories of that too. It was fun. It was an adventure.
Everybody got to caravan with everybody. Everybody got to enjoy everybody. Here I show up 12 hours after traveling with, my mom and dad and my brother, I mean, let's just brag about it a little bit more and how much fun it was.
Didn't you?
I will say one thing I learned was when I was an out-of-towner, people were excited to see you. Once you become an in-towner, that shit changes and you're no longer special.
We know because we did that too. We can relate to that.
The attention that you get as an out-of-towner compared to someone that's always there. So it's a whole different dynamic.
It is.
When I was an out-of-towner, everyone was happy to see me, and I don't know, you felt special, So,
let me ask you this question then. Since you rode the white bus, and it could be completely wrong, but I think you're about the same age. Brandon Sallow, that we've interviewed on here, did you travel with him?
No. Me and Brandon became friends later in life.
Okay. So you guys are about the same age then, about the same.
Yes, yeah, we were very close. So we Brandon and me had many shared stories that probably come up in time.
Now I got to go back and reread the book. No.
I was thinking the same thing.
Add him to our list of suspects.
Are you in the book?
Oh, he wrote a book. Oh, I did. Oh, okay. No,
Have you read his book?
I haven't.
Oh, okay. So you don't even know. You might be in the book.
I could be.
Well, we need to find out.
Well, if you are, he didn't use your name, but you might be in there. Robert, can you tell us how you watched the House of Yahweh and the teachings and the people change over the years that you were there?
Yeah, it was, like I said, initially the things that made the house appealing was the welcoming shared beliefs. But the beliefs never stayed the same. They constantly shifted. I'm not sure if it's by design, out of boredom, out of trying to create controversy or to test the faith. I'm not sure of the motivation, but there was always something that drastically changed the initial belief that brought you to the place you're at. So, you know a lot of the bulletin points, but there was a lot of things that, when we first came, there was no multiple wives.
Right.
In my time in the house, we went from being a faith that didn't believe in it to all of a sudden practicing it. That was quite the shift.
Right.
There was other things, we won't go into long details, but every time there was a shift, it made me reevaluate how I believed, or if I believed, and to what extent. And there was always something that I wasn't too sure about. And
I
the
can
most
relate.
dangerous thing, and it's not the house that corners the market on this, but
Right.
any organization that prevents you to think for yourself. And when, in fact, thinking for yourself gets you kicked out or gets you scarlet lettered, where you're one of the people
Ostracized,
that
or yeah.
think for themselves. Watch out what he says. You know, he's not a man of faith. Well,
Right.
I believe you have to be someplace where you're encouraged to think for yourself. You know, the collaboration of ideas is important. We can't just all believe one man's take on things. And at some point, I realized that's where I was at. I was at a place where I had to believe the leader's take on everything. And
Right.
if I didn't, I was a bad follower, or I was bound for hell. You know, whatever the guilt you'll put on yourself. But you know when things are right. You know when things feel right.
And Robert, I think actually when you mentioned all those different reasons, I think it's a combination. I think it's a little bit of all of those things why they change the belief so often. I think all of those factors play a part.
It could, you know. So to stay over time, my faith was real. I'm not going to lie. I truly, 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 with all my heart, believed at one point or another this was the truth, and it was my mission to be the best at it I could be. But over time, through the things we mentioned, as well as prophecy, you know, he was constantly throwing time frames out there, constantly saying 3.5 years, 7 years, all these time frames that you could hold him to and would come and pass. And every time one did, it would also chip away that faith. So my faith didn't disappear overnight. It slowly chipped away through drastic changes in the belief system, as well as constant disappointment in prophecy not being fulfilled. So it always blew my mind how easily people swept that under the rug. But I never could. I kept track of those dates.
You know what it is, Robert? I don't think that most people do. This is what I think. I think that that you have articulated it in a way that nobody else that's been on our show has been able to do so far. And I think a lot of people watching right now are going to be able to relate to the way that you explained that, because you explained it so well that I think a lot of our, especially House of Yahweh listeners, are going to be listening to this and go, yeah, that happened to me when I was there too. But we've never had anybody articulate it like that. And I appreciate that.
And that's I completely agree with that. And in saying what you just said, when we did our pre-interview with you, you said something that Mel and I, when we got off the pre-interview and were chatting with one another, we thought, man, what he said, we had never realized. And I think this is also, for those of you that are watching, are going to go, wow, I had never thought about it that way. You shared with us that you felt like you didn't experience racism in the House of Yahweh, but rather classism. Could you explain this to us?
Definitely. It took some time. Initially, like I never felt like anyone treated me differently because of the color of my skin. There was a variety of different races and cultures represented in the house, and that's one of the beautiful things about it. You know, religion in general. You know, it can unite. It can unite when done correctly.
Yeah.
And it did for a while. You know, but then I sort of realizing the dynamic was more classism, where if you're out of town or you're special, if you have a job that's that legitimizes, I can't talk right now, that legitimizes the religion. You know, for example, you're a doctor. All of a sudden, it's amazing how quick you can become an elder, how fast the lots are cast, and surprisingly, you're an elder within 6 months of joining, because having a doctor as an elder helps make the church look more legitimate. So I started noticing that people with certain strategic, skills or positions in life got special attention.
Money.
Got money, yes. How much you donated. We would be the ones to pick up the Tide box. It'd be heavy and bring it back there. And I would hear either a happy Israel or a mad Israel, depending on what he added up in there, and that was all him. So it was definitely all tracked, and whoever believed financially the most definitely seemed to get special privileges, special insight, special access, where others who truly believe, the people, there's one person we both know, I won't use his name, but he believed so much, he spent his whole life in this organization. I think he may be alive still, maybe dead. He lived in a little trailer in front of the press room and dedicated his whole life to the house. I think he literally is, if the rumors are true, a virgin. He never took a wife, never did anything but dedicated himself and his time and his life to this organization. And nothing, he wasn't rewarded with some nice trailer. No, it's the same ratty trailer he's always had. You know, Did
he ride a bike everywhere? Because I think I might know who you're talking about.
Yeah. It's heartbreaking because he truly believed and his whole life was given. And to go back to the impact that the prophecy has, and the reason I did this is for people maybe with children. I wanted to show a perspective of your search for the truth having on a 12-year-old, if you happen to have a 12-year-old.
Come on.
My mom put me out of school as soon as, she could. And so maybe 8th grade was my last year of public school. And from that point on, I was brought, to Texas and put in homeschooling through religion. So there goes history. You don't need that. We're going to replace that with Bible study. We're just going to cover math and this and they're going to leave out a lot of things that you may need.
Social studies, art, yeah.
Yes. So no knowledge of art, no knowledge of a lot of gaps in my education from the 8th grade on.
And that's just talking about the educational gaps. That's not talking about social gaps, because there's a social element that you lose when you're not around other people that are different than you, meaning people that have different beliefs, religious-wise.
Yes, you are hesitant to make friends and have to explain yourself because it's going to come up. So you keep to yourself.
Right.
But the concept of prophecy, for example, and so I was in homeschooling and trying my best to learn what we could, but no one takes your friend's sister trying to teach your class seriously. She don't know what she's doing. We don't know what we're doing. So we're not really being educated, but there was students that were just naturally smart. My best friend was genius. He always was. So he would teach us. So we were being taught by each other more than we were by the teachers that tried their best, but weren't as smart as my boy and his sister. You can just tell those two are going to be sharp regardless of what homeschoolers they do at us. But he refused to stop learning. Whereas my other friends were like, hey, the world's going to end in 7 years. Why are you thinking about college? Why are you thinking about getting a GED and furthering your education?
Yep.
I never be made fun of because I, was wanting to sign up to my friend's idea that, hey, let's just keep educating yourself just in case the world doesn't end. But that was actually going against the grain, which is one of the scariest aspects of buying in too strongly into any religion. You have to constantly educate yourself, regardless. You can't just immerse yourself in what one person believes. You have to further your education no matter what you believe, and verify things, double check, learn other perspectives. Don't just settle for what one man puts in a book and says is the truth, who constantly uses the lexicons to retranslate and to make one sentence another thing than it was last year. So it's a organic belief to begin with, constantly changing and growing and going different directions. So you got to educate yourself. And thankfully, this one friend told me to get my GED. This one friend said, go to college. And if I hadn't, I'd be in a lot different position than I am now, even though I've always felt dumb my whole life because of the lack of the big gaps in my education.
Right.
So, people talk about art. I'd be like, what are you talking about? I didn't discover art until college. I didn't discover history until college. I was learning things, that people learn in fifth, in eighth grade or ninth grade for the first
Right.
time as an adult. So don't let your kids suffer or stop growing or educating themselves because you're such a literature.
That's an important message. I'm glad you said that, all
So-
of that, Robert.
So let me climb on my soapbox. I warned you about this. Let me say this. As we're only, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes into this interview, I want to say to you, there's different types of intelligent. There's book intelligent, and then there's world intelligent. And just from having this conversation with you, and I love all of our guests, I love everybody that we have spoken to almost for a year now, Mel.
Mm-hmm.
But you have, just in the few minutes we've been talking, you have articulated the best and the most intellectual way classism, how your children are going through things, and why would we listen if it's not true, and all of that. So you just made the comment, I've always felt dumb. I'm gonna call BS on you, because I'm sitting here listening.
I'm going to second that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you going, this is a young man who in 8th grade quit his education. He never quit. Your mind was constantly ticking. You were constantly learning. Maybe
Yes.
not everything that the books say, but you learned life.
Yes.
And so what
Social and emotional intelligence.
Yes. So what you did was you already had that. You were already socially, emotionally, and mentally intelligent. You just added books to your intelligence. I don't ever want to hear you say that you weren't smart again.
I appreciate that. But it was something I had to overcome. I left. Right. Like I said, the house, I have nothing but good things to say about it because I had good experiences.
Right.
Overall, I have lifelong relationships, friendships to this day because of the house.
Right.
But the negative impacts it had on me were slowing down what everyone should be focused on, which is constantly educating yourself and growing.
I agree.
And don't become stagnant in one belief and be ignorant to other perspectives. You have to constantly grow. And if something like a religion prevents you from growing, get out.
I agree.
I don't care if it's a cult or a major organization.
Yep.
Anything that prevents personal growth is bad for you.
I love that. See, that's exactly what we're talking about, the way that's articulated. I love that.
So I'm totally having a mom moment here, but go ahead.
Robert, we know that you worked as a PA, which is a personal assistant to the leader at one point when you were part of the organization. Can you tell us what that was like for you and how that position was eventually taken from you?
It was intoxicating. It was so fun. I'm not gonna lie. I was paired up with his most trusted elder, and there's a little office outside of his office, and only me and him would be in there. Eventually there'd be the secretary that would, as the traffic got bigger. So it just felt like we were the gatekeepers to the leader. And when you believe that, the man in the room next to you is, the representative of the creator himself, you can't help but feel special.
And I have a quick question, Robert. I know that when I was there, the PAs all dressed like men in black, in their suits, their black suits and stuff. Were you still dressing like the men in black?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved wearing the suits. And I had little tasks, like I didn't have anything.
Hold on. Let me pause. Okay. He did not only dress like the men in black. Okay, he dressed like the GQ men in black. Okay, let's get real. Let's just get real about this first. But go ahead.
So a typical day, I would get there at 6:30 in the morning, and me and the elder I was assigned with would help him record and produce his free TV, show he would do every week. Then he would go and usually prepare if he was speaking, and we would keep people away. If he wasn't speaking, we would let people in, but only if it was relevant, because everyone see the pastor before before Saturday services. So it was quite the task. And then little things like going out and counting how many people were in attendance. And I would do my GQ walk, walk down the aisle, counting all cool as I could, turn around and walk back. That was a fun.
It was like a catwalk.
It pretty much was a catwalk. And so doing while everyone else is paying attention, we get to strut our stuff. So I was 15, 16, so it was, like I said, and it was intoxicating. So I loved the position. But then, of course, eventually over time, you do stupid stuff, you make mistakes, and, the elders report everything to Israel. Once you're in trouble, bam, you're out of the inner circle. So there was a drastic shift, and I no longer had access. I used to be lead through my position as well as being a member of his family, or allegedly, I guess, I don't know. I used to be able to go to family get-togethers, and I had unlimited access to him. And then it was all taken away like that.
So it was like a blow to your ego.
It was a blow to anything because, this is the guy I was nothing more than trying to please. And my ability to try to please him was ripped from me because of stupid adolescent mistakes. But nonetheless, everything gets reported back to Israel, and if you have any mistakes on your resume, you really can't be in the inner circle anymore. You have to be above the coach. So I deserve to be in trouble, but to lose everything was
okay. And I'm just going to add, because you did tell us this in the pre-interview chat, Robert, that you said that you were told you couldn't be trusted around the women. Yes. And I'm going to say, I think the truth behind that statement was there was a lot of jealousy because you did wear that suit so well.
I did get older in the position. I was a kid when I started and became a teenager throughout the process. So maybe I became to a point where I could be tempted to one of the women. I don't know, because that could have been part of it. I don't know, but let me
add now, not because you were pursuing them or flirting with them or whatever, but I'm going to add my 2 cents in now because I personally knew him. Okay. He, like others that we have interviewed that were in his inner circle that were friends with him.
Right.
He also was one of those ones, here, let me grab the bag for you. Oh, you need help with children. And not just with me, but in general. If a woman was struggling, he would go out there and help them with whatever it was that they needed. Hold doors open.
So he was a gentleman. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
How are you? Have a good day. Thank you. May I? Please. He was not flirty.
Right.
But he was the GQ, look at me, not in an obnoxious, rude type of way, but I was a married woman. I'm not going to lie. I may have went, well, Nathan, they didn't make it like that when I was growing up. Twice. But he never, and he was a part, and I'm going to say it. I know he won't say it, but I'll say it. He worked right alongside with Didier.
Right.
And so he was a part of our family. And there were times he had to come over and help me with with whatever was taking place, or help one of Didier's other wives.
I never forget this. Can I tell a quick story?
Yes.
Sure.
Amazing stories I have about motherhood. I was helping out Didier's second wife. And for those that don't know, he had 2 mobile homes side by side. And for some reason or another, I was watching the youngest son, and maybe he was 1 or 2. I was so new with babies, I was just holding him or feeding him. I don't remember, or maybe I wasn't doing nothing. Maybe I was just watching him. He was in a playpen, and I was just watching. And I remember our son noticing he looked like he was choking. I didn't know what to do. I just started screaming, "Help! Help! The baby's choking!" And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Otto comes running from the other clip, just busted, grabs the baby, pow! And one hit, the baby's breathing again, and the crisis is over. But it took her like that. She was from another mobile home all the way around, busted the door, grabbed the baby, one slap, and the baby was saved. It was just a beautiful,
You did this, Autumn?
This Autumn, Ariel, yes. I call it Autumn, Ariel. But she was an amazing mother. But I saw her firsthand save a baby who went on and is doing amazing things. As I'm sure you know, but that child is quite.
He is.
Wow.
He's the
Thanks
one
to
that
your mother's
comes
deals.
several times a year, Mel, to the house.
Right.
No, I don't remember that, but yes,
But you got so many stories like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal to her.
No, they were all my children. They're still all my children. I still talk to them all. But he was 15, 16 years old, 14, however old at the time. He was watching a toddler, a child. Yeah. So it wasn't a matter, for those that are watching, it wasn't a matter of he was flirting. Oh, they just said he worked. No, it wasn't a matter of that at all. And
no, I never got in trouble while doing the PA stuff. Like I said, as I got older, I'm now getting closer to 17, 18. His wives are getting younger. One of them was 15, 16.
And they're noticing how helpful, how kind, how respectful. And I mean, he did. He pulled off the Men in Black like Will Smith very well. I'll say it.
Yeah.
I said it then, and I would get in trouble, and I'll say it now. He did.
Yeah.
And it was jealousy.
That's what I said.
I don't know. All I know is what the impact it had on me, once again, chipped away
right.
That faith I told you about. That was strong initially. I wanted it.
And actually, Autumn, that leads right into the next question. Talking about his faith.
Do we have time? Do you want me to ask it?
I think you can ask it. If he starts getting a little too long, then we'll back. I'll stop him because we got 7 minutes, so we'll try.
Okay. Robert, can you share with us when and why you started to lose your faith?
Well, it does lead perfectly into it. That was probably the biggest chip, because at that point, everything that I held dear, was ripped from me. It was sudden and it was final. There was no appealing it. There was no, rebounding or getting it back. Work hard enough. It was just gone. So at that point, I'm not sure how many years later, but eventually we started all getting jobs in the world to have money, and the last piece of the puzzle was actually interacting with people outside the faith, because at this point we had put ourselves in a bubble of faith-only friends, faith-only associates, faith-only co-workers. I left the bubble, and I had all these chips at my faith. So the faith was cracked all over the place. I was holding together because my family and my friends, mad at me. I'm not walking away from my family and my friends. But at some point, the more I associated with people outside the faith, I did things with those people, as go out, have drinks, just be a normal, person.
Right.
People would see me and report it back to the elders, which would result in, when I would go to services to try to listen to something that could hopefully fix these cracks or hopefully keep me intact enough to make it to next week, instead of being able to listen to these services as sermons, I was called into the back to be counseled. And not just me, anyone that needed counseling. So if there was, once again, classism, or I don't want to say classism, there was, in this case, it would be, I'm not sure how you describe it, but there was certain elders that people respected what they had to say and got the utmost attention. Pastor, maybe Yehuda, there's a few. There's only 3 or 4, and then there was your boring speakers and people that they think they're smarter than. So during those people, they're gonna do counseling and other things to keep themselves from falling asleep. So we got counseled every Saturday, and so we got to the point where we hated going to services because we knew it was going to be a counsel session, especially if it's not pastor speaking. Right. And it just stripped the joy. The last drop of joy I got out of going to the temple, or to the church, was just, that was it. At that point, I was just done. I was only there for others at this point. And eventually, the rumors got to the point where they were like, "Hey, we think you need tough love right now, so we're going to go ahead and ask you to leave and excommunicate you until you feel you've done enough to be worthy of coming back." So luckily for me, in retrospect, they pushed me away, because I would have hung on for other people's benefit, probably to my dying day, and been the guy in the trailer, who dedicated his whole life to someone else's beliefs.
Right.
So luckily they pushed me out. And once again, I felt the relief the guilt I felt for being in the religion, while, excuse me, while no longer truly believing, was intense. That being pushed out, it just was. I
can relate to that because I was excommunicated too, but I was excommunicated at a point where I was already on the verge of getting ready to leave anyway.
Your mind was already excommunicated itself.
Let me explain to people who are watching or going, well, if you're already doing this, why didn't you leave? Everybody who's watching need to understand his mom and his little sister were still there.
Right.
And they were not in a situation where, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, he did not feel that they were going to be taken care of, watched over for just their basic needs. Also, his best friend that he speaks so highly of, that he is still to this day best friends with, was still
there
in the house. So I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if he would have just up and left on his own, his mother couldn't have talked to him, his sister couldn't have talked to him, his friend couldn't have talked to him, if they followed the rules.
If they did, and my mom did. So I didn't talk to my mom and sister for maybe 8 years.
Well, yeah, because they even do that if you're excommunicated. You can't talk to people who are excommunicated
she
either.
believed she didn't have the cracks I had. I didn't hold any of it against her because, once again, I understood. It's a different experience, and this is a whole other topic. If you're a man.
Okay, but let's hold on, because that brings me to a question that I would like for you guys to get into, because I've actually heard this question from other viewers.
Okay, well, he's already answered my question. So ask the question you want to ask, and we're going to use it as a hook because we're down to 2 minutes.
The question I want to know is actually not written down.
Right.
The question I want to know is, you said you did not speak to your mother for 8 years. I would like for you to explain to us the reason why, how it made you feel, and if you are speaking to her today.
Okay.
But don't answer now.
No.
We have a great relationship, and when I
hold
say
on, Robert, hold on. We're not going to answer now because we're going to go on to
we got to do part 2 because we're down to less than 2 minutes now. So we're going to stop. We're going to take a little break, but come back for the second part of Robert's interview. You don't want to miss it.